Hey everyone. So I wanted to take a little bit of time today to talk about something that is really, really important to myself and my family. I'm not sure, maybe it's just my social media because of various algorithms, but I've noticed a huge increase in some of the really tragic stories that are being shared and that are happening in North America when it comes to individuals passing away with type 1 diabetes, either because of misdiagnosis, late diagnosis, or complications related to their type 1 diabetes. This is important to me if you are just coming to my social media new. My children both have type 1 diabetes. Carter is 10 and he was diagnosed at age 15 months, and Tucker is 8. He was diagnosed at age 6. We also have been really involved with the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation, or JDRF, since 2010 when we started volunteering after Carter was diagnosed and fundraising and participating that way. And then in 2014, I started working for JDRF for a couple of years. We're still very passionately involved, and this is something that is very, very important to me. But I don't know, this maybe is just an increase on my feed, but it is really weighing heavy on my heart right now. And so I wanted to take some time to really explain to everybody who maybe doesn't know what type 1 diabetes is, why it's different from type 2 diabetes, why this could literally happen to anybody, and why we are so passionate about finding a cure and how you can get involved even in just a really small way. So let's talk first about what type 1 diabetes is, because this, I think, is where a lot of issues are arising, is that people are unintentionally ignorant about what type 1 is, or that there is even different types of diabetes. So type 1 and type 2 diabetes are completely different diseases, and it's really unfortunate that they have such similar names because they get kind of lumped together a lot. Type 1 diabetes is actually an autoimmune disease, so very similar to MS or lupus, in that, let's say your child has the flu, or in my case, my child had the flu. The immune system, the immune cells, the superhero cells come out and they attack those bad flu cells. And then in most individuals that don't have an autoimmune disease, those cells shut back off and they go back to sleep until they're needed again. However, with people with autoimmune diseases, those cells go a little bit crazy and they go and attack another part of the body. In the case of type 1 diabetes, it is the beta cells, or the insulin producing cells in the pancreas. So with individuals with type 1 diabetes, the immune system kills off eventually, and it's at varying rates in different people, but it kills off all of the insulin producing cells in the pancreas. So people with T1D do not produce their own insulin. And that's where the biggest difference is between type 1 and type 2. People with type 2 diabetes usually still produce insulin. It's just typically either they don't produce enough or their body isn't utilizing it enough. And that's where things like diet adjustments or fitness regime adjustments can help with the symptoms of type 2 diabetes. I want to make it clear though right now that eating too much sugar, having a poor diet, poor exercise, that's not going to cause type 2 diabetes. It's not going to cause any kind of diabetes. Having poor diet or exercise might make it more difficult for the body to utilize the little amounts of insulin that it has in it, or create complications within that disease, but it's not causing it. But back to type 1, because that's where we're at. So to understand why insulin is important, everything that you eat that is a carbohydrate, so fruit, milk, cheese, or cheese doesn't really have a lot of carbs, but yogurt, obviously candy, bread, etc. All of those carbs turn into glucose in our body, and in people with normal functioning pancreases, our body uses that to turn it into energy. And so what insulin does is, insulin is the key that unlocks the cell that the glucose then enters to be turned into energy in the cell for our body to use. With people with type 1 diabetes, they don't have that insulin to unlock that cell, so the glucose is just bouncing around in their system and their bloodstream and causing issues. With type 1 diabetes, we are carefully monitoring their blood sugar levels, because you want to aim to keep them in a target level to prevent short-term and long-term issues. So in the short term, if a person has too much insulin, or they, let's say, have too much activity, because, well, carbohydrates bring your blood sugar up insulin and activity will bring your blood sugar low. And by activity, I mean also things like temper tantrums in children, growth spurts, things that are using up that glucose at a very quick rate. It's going to reduce your blood sugar very quickly. And it's a very short-term emergency situation, in that if a low blood sugar is not treated in time, a person can slip into unconsciousness, into a coma, and die. With the opposite, with high blood sugars, what the issue is with a long-term high blood sugar or prolonged high blood sugar, this can lead to long-term issues like eye disease, kidney disease, heart disease, nerve death, all sorts of really, really poor things in the long term. And in the short term, an issue can be that it affects their ability to focus, their ability to concentrate. So with children, this is an issue in school, obviously, right? So we're very carefully monitoring blood sugar, and people with type 1 diabetes are finger poking for their blood sugar checks 6 to 10 times a day, sometimes more. Every time they eat, exercise, feel sick, going to bed, going to drive, all of these things, they need to check their blood sugar to make sure that their blood sugar is within a target range. We're also, individuals with type 1 diabetes need to administer artificial insulin some way. And many times it's by multiple daily injections. So needles in their arms, their stomach, their bum, sometimes 6, 8, 10 times a day, every time they eat carbohydrates, or if their blood sugar is too high. Some people have an insulin pump. Both of my children have insulin pumps, so it's a mechanical device that has insulin in it, has a tube connected to them by a cannula at all times. We change that out every 2 days, but it is connected to them 24 hours a day, and the device administers insulin. However, I want to be really clear here. Insulin pumps are not a cure. Insulin is not a cure. Insulin is a treatment. And insulin pumps are still a mechanical device that can fail. In fact, with my son Carter just a month ago, where he typically gets about 2 units of insulin throughout the night, his pump randomly decided to give him 10 units of insulin within a matter of seconds. And the reality of that situation is that if we had not discovered that, he would not have woken up the next morning. It is such a balancing act. And the terrifying thing is that, and this is where we're hearing these stories, and it's scaring those of us that have a loved one with type 1 so much, or individuals with type 1 as well. You can do everything right, and something can still go wrong, because it's not a perfected science, because insulin is not a cure, because pumps and treatment options and continuous glucose monitors and people who are educated and having all the training is not a cure. And that is why I'm so passionate about sharing this with everybody, because I want you to know that before I was a mother of a child with type 1 diabetes, I was not a mother with a child with type 1 diabetes. We had no diabetes in our family at all. And the science has not yet caught up to why this happens to some people and not others. And I also want you to know that it is not just a disease that happens to children. It used to be called juvenile diabetes because the thought was that people were being diagnosed under the age of 18. But the truth is that people over 18 were being misdiagnosed with type 2 diabetes. And so now that we are smarter and have the information, we know people are being diagnosed in their 50s, 60s, and 70s. And you never grow out of this. There is no growing out of type 1 diabetes. So even if you're diagnosed at 15 months of age, until a cure is found, you have this disease until the very last day of your life. My children will be poking their fingers and injecting themselves and worrying about what their bodies are doing and concerning themselves with what they're going to eat in 2 hours and the lacrosse game they're going to play in 4 hours, and trying to balance all that math for the rest of their lives. And you have the ability to help. You may not have somebody in your life that is yet diagnosed with type 1, but you may at some point. I hope to God that never happens to you. I would never wish this on anybody. But the reality is, again, before I was a type 1 mom, I wasn't. And the exciting thing is that there are so many ways that you can get involved, even on a small scale. I often say, I'm not smart enough to find a cure for type 1. I am not a scientific researcher. If I was, I would be there every day and night trying to find a cure for my children, because I would do anything to take this away from my children. But because I am not a researcher, I will do everything that I can to help get the researchers the funds and the necessities that they need to do their job. Because I have had the pleasure of meeting some of these researchers, and they are so passionate about what they do, and they are so passionate for finding a cure. They want us to fund them out of a job. They want to work themselves out of a job. I want you to know that you can get involved by volunteering. The Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation, or JDRF, is across the world. There is a JDRF near you, and you can get involved with an event, either by volunteering in the office, volunteering at a fun event like the walk, the ride, a gala. There's super fun events all year long, and you can pass out waters at a ride, or help set up at a walk, or like be a ticket taker at a gala. There are tons of volunteer opportunities for you to get involved in, and we need volunteers all of the time. You can get involved by donating. There are people like me who are fundraising. We are going out and we are asking people to help us, and we need your help. We need your help. And I know that it's impossible to donate to everything, but I want you to hear me when I say I'm not asking you to donate $100. If you do, that's wicked. That's awesome. But you don't have to donate $100 to everything. You don't have to even donate $20. Donating $1 helps, and it makes a difference. And I'm trying not to get emotional, but it's very hard. I'm sure you have $1 rolling around in the bottom of your vehicle or in the cushions of your couch. $1 does make a difference. It helps. It moves research forward. And we need every dollar that we can get to help the research move forward. You can also get involved by fundraising yourself. There are wicked fun events coming up right away. Locally, we have a stationary bike-a-thon called the JDRF Revolution, Ride to Defeat Diabetes. And what it is, it's a stationary bike-a-thon, so you're not riding around in the country. You only ride for 7 minutes. You have a team of 5 people all together. Each person rides for 7 minutes, and everybody else cheers on. There's tons of loud music. Costumes are encouraged. There's snacks. There's noisemakers. It's basically like a party in the middle of the day, and you raise funds. You ask your friends and family to donate to you, to pledge you in this ride. And it's a great team building activity. It's a great family like bonding activity, and anybody can get involved in it. It is not a big deal to get involved in these things and to help make a difference. And by helping spread awareness and spread information about type 1 diabetes and about JDRF and about the research, that's helping. You can make a difference. You can make a difference by asking questions. If you don't know, please ask, because we want you to be informed. Please know that every type 1 parent has looked into or thought about every single possible option for a cure for their children. Every research project we are up on top of and have our fingers in and reading about, every diet that might possibly help with our children's development, we have discussed it with our team. We have researched it. Even the bullshit cinnamon cure has crossed our minds, because we will do anything to take this away from our children. And that's what is bringing me here today to you. I am like bearing my heart and pleading and showing you as much passion that I can share to say, please help us, and please get involved to help find a cure for our children. 300,000 other Canadians. I don't know the statistics for the US, I'm sorry, but there are 300,000 plus Canadians living with type 1 diabetes, and the highest incident rate is children under the age of 14, and that's increasing by 5% every year. I want to say this again, not to scare you, but to really bring reality home. On November 8th, 2009, type 1 diabetes meant nothing to me. I was not the parent of a child with type 1 diabetes. I slept through the night. I didn't worry about my child not waking up in the morning. I didn't worry about my kid being made fun of at school. I didn't worry about how he would have to feel not being able to go to sleepovers, or worry about him going to college, or having a family. On November 8th in 2009, none of that crossed my mind. And I probably would have watched a video like this and thought, that's really sad, but it doesn't affect me and it doesn't matter to me because I don't have a child with diabetes. And on November 9th, 2009, I did. I am so thankful to you for sticking out this whole video and for listening to me and for dealing with all of this. And if you have any questions, please ask, because I am always an open book and I will continue sharing this until we find a cure. Help us please turn type 1 into type 9.